a puppy waiting outside a hospital every single night, braving the cold and the rain, refusing to leave. But when a doctor finally uncovers the reason, his heart shatters. What could drive this tiny dog to such unyielding loyalty? Animals have a way of showing love that words could never capture. Their loyalty, their devotion, it's pure, it's selfless, and sometimes it's heart-wrenching. This story isn't just about a puppy. It's about a connection so profound it transcends words. A little dog, alone in the dark, waiting outside a hospital. At first, people didn't pay much attention. It was just another stray in a big, busy city. But when one doctor took the time to find out why, the truth unraveled into something far deeper than anyone expected. This story will tug at your heartstrings and remind you why the love between animals and humans is truly one of life's greatest gifts. Stay with me, because by the end, you'll see this little puppy in a way you never imagined. The hospital parking lot was always bustling during the day, filled with nurses hurrying to shifts, visitors coming and going, and patients seeking care. But every night, as the world quieted, something unusual would appear. Curled up near the entrance, a tiny puppy would settle down in the same spot, its eyes fixed on the sliding glass doors. It was an odd sight, a little dog, no bigger than a loaf of bread, lying in the cold and waiting as though it had an appointment it couldn't miss. At first, no one thought much of it. Stray animals were common in the area, after all. But this puppy was different. For weeks, the puppy showed up without fail, regardless of the weather. Rain poured, winds howled, and temperatures dipped. Yet the dog remained steadfast. Hospital staff and visitors began to notice. Some pitied the little creature, leaving scraps of food or an old blanket. Others ignored it, too preoccupied with their own problems to care. But no matter what, the puppy never left its spot for long. It was always there by dusk, its small frame trembling in the chill, its soulful eyes scanning every person who walked past. Soon, whispers began to circulate among the hospital staff. "What's the deal with that dog?" a nurse asked one evening as she clocked out. "It's been here every night for over a month. Doesn't it have anywhere else to go?" Another nurse shrugged. "I tried to approach it once, but it just ran off. Poor thing must be lost." Despite the curiosity, no one took the time to dig deeper. The hospital was a busy place, and everyone had their hands full. Doctors rushed between emergencies, nurses juggled patients, and visitors carried their own burdens of worry and grief. There was little room to ponder the mysteries of a stray puppy. But for Dr. Patel, one of the hospital's senior physicians, the puppy became a growing concern. Dr. Patel was known for his compassion, both toward his patients and the staff. Late one night, as he left the hospital after a grueling 12-hour shift, he spotted the puppy huddled near the entrance. Its small body was visibly shivering, and its eyes, big, brown, and full of longing, stared up at him. Something about the sight tugged at his heart. The next evening, Dr. Patel brought a small bowl of warm broth and set it near the puppy. At first, the dog eyed him warily, its tail tucked between its legs. But hunger eventually won, and it cautiously approached, lapping up the broth with quick, nervous movements. Dr. Patel crouched a few feet away, speaking softly. "You're not just any stray, are you? You're waiting for something, or someone." Over the following days, Dr. Patel made it a point to check on the puppy whenever he could. He noticed patterns: how the dog would always arrive at dusk, how it would stare intently at the hospital's entrance as if expecting someone to walk through the doors. It wasn't looking for food or shelter. It was waiting for a person. Intrigued, Dr. Patel began asking around. Do any of you know why this dog is here? He inquired during a staff meeting. Most shrugged or shook their heads. Probably just another stray, one doctor said dismissively. But a cleaning staff member, an older woman named Maria, spoke up. I've seen that dog before, she said. It started showing up around the time they brought in that accident victim last month. The man who didn't make it. He was young, maybe mid-30s. Came in late at night, unconscious. Didn't have any ID on him. They said he'd been found on the side of the road. Dr. Patel's mind raced. Could the puppy be connected to the accident victim? The idea seemed far-fetched, but the timing aligned. He decided to dig deeper, reviewing the hospital's records from the night Maria mentioned. The details confirmed her account. A young man had been admitted in critical condition after a severe car accident. Despite the doctor's best efforts, he had succumbed to his injuries within hours. No family or friends had ever come forward to claim the body, and the man had been buried in a nearby cemetery. Determined to uncover the truth, Dr. Patel reached out to local animal shelters and rescue groups, describing the puppy and its unusual behavior. One shelter worker suggested a possible explanation. Dogs have an incredible sense of smell and loyalty. If the man was the dog's owner, it might have followed the ambulance here and stayed, waiting for him to come back. The thought was both heartbreaking and profound. Could this tiny puppy's vigil really be a testament to its love and loyalty? Dr. Patel felt a knot tighten in his chest. If the dog was waiting for its owner, it didn't know the man would never return. And yet, night after night, it stayed an embodiment of hope and devotion in the face of insurmountable loss. But the puppy's situation presented challenges beyond its emotional story. As winter approached, the nights grew colder, and the little dog's frail body was ill-equipped to handle the dropping temperatures. Despite the food and blankets some staff members provided, the puppy's health was visibly deteriorating. Its ribs became more pronounced, its movements slower, and its once bright eyes began to dull. Dr. Patel knew that time was running out. One evening, after another long shift, he approached the puppy with a leash and a gentle resolve. "Come on, buddy," he whispered. "Let me help you." But the dog, wary and skittish, backed away, its eyes filled with mistrust. It wouldn't let anyone get too close, no matter how well-intentioned they seemed. Dr. Patel realized he needed a different approach. He reached out to a local animal behaviorist for advice. "Build trust," she said. "Be patient. Let the dog come to you on its own terms. It's been through a lot, and right now, fear is its biggest barrier." Taking her advice, Dr. Patel spent the next few nights sitting a few feet away from the puppy, speaking softly and leaving food within its reach. Slowly, the dog began to relax. It inched closer, bit by bit, until one night, it allowed him to gently touch its head. That small moment of connection was a turning point. Dr. Patel saw it as a breakthrough not just in gaining the puppy's trust, but in understanding the depth of its loyalty and pain. Still, the challenges weren't over. The dog needed medical care, shelter, and a place where it could heal, both physically and emotionally. Dr. Patel resolved to provide all of that. But first, he wanted to honor the story that had brought the puppy to the hospital's doors. He began reaching out to local media outlets, sharing the puppy's tale of unwavering devotion. The story quickly gained traction, touching hearts across the community. Donations poured in to support the dog's care, and people volunteered to help. What started as one man's effort to help a stray grew into a movement of kindness, proving that even in the face of heartbreak, love could inspire hope and action. But for Dr. Patel, the puppy's journey wasn't just about its survival. It was a poignant reminder of the bonds that connect us all, human and animal alike. and the lengths we go to for those we love. Dr. Patel's nights began to revolve around the little dog outside the hospital. While he had successfully built some trust, there was still much to uncover about the puppy's story. The dog's quiet devotion sparked more than just curiosity. It became a mission. Questions lingered in Dr. Patel's mind. Was the puppy truly connected to the man who had passed away? What kind of life had it led before ending up here? And most importantly, how could he ensure its safety and happiness? One evening, after earning the dog's trust enough to approach it with a leash, Dr. Patel decided to take it for a short walk. He hoped that giving the dog a taste of companionship might ease its fears. The dog hesitated at first, its movements stiff and uncertain, but eventually, it allowed him to slip the leash around its neck. The two walked around the quiet hospital grounds under the dim glow of streetlights. It was during this walk that Dr. Patel noticed something peculiar. The puppy seemed to know its way around. It would pause at certain corners, sniffing the ground intently, as though retracing old, familiar steps. Dr. Patel followed the dog's lead, intrigued by its purposeful behavior. After about 15 minutes, the dog stopped near a bus stop not far from the hospital. It sat down, its eyes fixed on the road as though waiting for someone. Dr. Patel crouched beside it, speaking softly. "Is this where you used to come with your owner?" He wondered aloud. The dog didn't answer, of course, but its quiet vigilance spoke volumes. It stayed there for several minutes, its body still, before eventually standing up and leading Dr. Patel back toward the hospital. The following day, Dr. Patel decided to investigate further. He reviewed the hospital security footage from the night the accident victim had been brought in. As he scanned the grainy recordings, his heart sank. There, trailing behind the ambulance, was the little puppy, running as fast as its legs could carry it. The footage confirmed what Dr. Patel had suspected. The dog had followed its owner to the hospital, refusing to leave even after the man had passed away. With this new understanding, Dr. Patel felt a deeper sense of responsibility toward the dog. But the challenges were far from over. The puppy's health was deteriorating, and despite its loyalty, it was still wary of humans. Dr. Patel knew he couldn't help the dog alone. He reached out to a local animal rescue organization, sharing the puppy's story and asking for their support. The group's founder, a compassionate woman named Alina, was deeply moved by the tale. "This isn't just a dog," Alina said when she met Dr. Patel at the hospital. "It's a symbol of loyalty and love. We'll do everything we can to help." Together, they devised a plan. Elena's team would provide medical care for the puppy, ensuring it received the vaccinations and treatments it needed. Meanwhile, Dr. Patel would continue working on building trust and helping the dog adjust to a life without its owner. The rescue team's first priority was to give the puppy a thorough checkup. Alina and her volunteers set up a small clinic in the hospital's parking lot, knowing the dog wouldn't willingly leave the area. It took nearly an hour to coax the dog into a crate, but once inside, it calmed down. The checkup revealed several issues. The puppy was underweight, had an infection in one ear, and showed signs of malnutrition. These were serious but treatable conditions, and the team got to work immediately. As the days turned into weeks, the dog's condition slowly improved. Its coat began to shine, its eyes regained their brightness, and its energy returned. Dr. Patel continued his nightly visits, bringing treats and spending time with the dog. He also began researching the accident victim, hoping to learn more about the man who had inspired such unwavering loyalty. Through a combination of hospital records and local news reports, Dr. Patel pieced together the man's story. His name was Samir, a construction worker who had moved to the city a few years ago. Samir had adopted the puppy, whom he'd named Max, after finding it abandoned near a construction site. The two had been inseparable ever since, with Samir often taking Max to work and treating him like family. The thought of Max waiting outside the hospital for weeks, not knowing that Samir was gone, filled Dr. Patel with a profound sense of sadness. Dr. Patel decided to honor Samir's memory by ensuring Max's story didn't end in heartbreak. He worked with Alina to find a suitable home for Max, someone who could provide the love and care the puppy deserved. But as the days went by, Dr. Patel found himself growing more attached to Max. The dog's resilience and loyalty were inspiring, and Dr. Patel realized that Max had become more than just a patient or a story to him. One evening, as Dr. Patel sat with Max outside the hospital, the dog rested its head on his lap for the first time. The small gesture felt like a breakthrough, a sign that Max was beginning to trust him fully. Dr. Patel smiled, stroking the dog's soft fur. "Maybe you're not just waiting for Samir anymore," he said quietly. "Maybe you're ready for a new start." Dr. Patel made the decision that night. He would adopt Max himself. The dog had already become a part of his life, and he couldn't imagine letting it go. He filled out the necessary paperwork with Elena's rescue organization and made arrangements to bring Max home. The transition wasn't without its challenges. Max had spent weeks outside the hospital, and adjusting to a new environment took time. But with patience and love, the dog began to settle into its new life. As word of Max's story spread, it gained attention from local media outlets. Journalists came to interview Dr. Patel, and Max became somewhat of a local celebrity. People were moved by the puppy's loyalty and resilience, and donations poured into Elena's rescue organization. The story even inspired a community-wide campaign to support stray animals, with several people stepping up to adopt or foster pets in need. Dr. Patel used the attention to raise awareness about the importance of compassion, not just for animals, but for each other. "Max's story isn't just about a dog," he said during one interview. "It's about love, loyalty, and the connections that make us human. If we can learn anything from him, it's that kindness has the power to heal, even in the darkest of times." Over time, Max became a fixture at the hospital, accompanying Dr. Patel to work and brightening the days of patients and staff alike. His story continued to inspire, serving as a reminder of the unbreakable bond between animals and humans. And while Max would always carry the memory of Samir in his heart, he found a new purpose in his life with Dr. Patel, proving that even in the face of loss, love can create new beginnings. As winter's first frost blanketed the city, the air outside the hospital became biting, almost cruel. Despite the chill, Max, now the name affectionately given to the puppy by Dr. Patel, remained a constant presence near the hospital's entrance. His once frail frame had started to recover, thanks to weeks of care and nourishment. Yet, his demeanor was still marked by quiet vigilance. He had grown to trust Dr. Patel, but a piece of him seemed to remain tethered to the past, waiting for a return that would never come. Dr. Patel had made a significant decision. Max needed closure. Just as humans struggle to move forward without understanding their loss, Max's unwavering loyalty suggested he was still searching for answers. Dr. Patel knew it was time to take Max to the cemetery where Samir, his former owner, had been laid to rest. It wasn't a decision made lightly. It was a step toward healing for both the dog and himself. On a gray afternoon, Dr. Patel loaded Max into his car. The dog, initially hesitant, eventually settled into the seat beside him, his eyes scanning the world outside with a mix of curiosity and longing. The drive was quiet, save for the low hum of the engine and Dr. Patel's occasional murmurs of reassurance. When they arrived at the cemetery, Max's ears perked up as he took in the new surroundings. The walk to Samir's grave was slow and deliberate. Dr. Patel carried a small bouquet of flowers, their vibrant colors a stark contrast to the muted tones of the cemetery. Max stayed close to his side, his movements cautious but purposeful. When they finally reached the gravesite, Dr. Patel knelt down, placing the flowers gently on the headstone. "This is where he is, Max," he said softly, his voice carrying the weight of unspoken emotion. The dog sniffed the ground, his nose tracing invisible lines of scent that seemed to connect him to memories long past. Then, as if understanding, Max sat down and let out a soft whimper. Dr. Patel felt his chest tighten. In that moment, it was clear. Max knew. For several minutes, the two of them remained there, the only sound the rustling of leaves in the winter wind. It was a shared silence, filled with grief, love, and a quiet acknowledgement of what had been lost. Dr. Patel reached out, placing a hand on Max's head. "He loved you so much," he said, "and you loved him. But it's okay to let go now." Max's gaze lingered on the headstone for a moment longer before he stood and nudged Dr. Patel's hand with his nose. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes. The dog had spent weeks waiting outside the hospital, holding on to hope. Now, it seemed, he was ready to move forward. Returning home that evening, something in Max had changed. He was more at ease. His usual watchful demeanor softened into something closer to peace. Dr. Patel noticed it in the way Max settled into his new bed without hesitation. His body relaxed, and his eyes free of their usual tension. For the first time since their journey began, Max seemed truly at home. But the story didn't end there. A week later, Dr. Patel was approached by a local journalist who had heard about Max and his incredible journey. "Your story is something people need to hear," she said. "It's a reminder of the bonds we share with animals and the lessons they teach us about loyalty and love." The journalist's article, published in the city's largest newspaper, quickly gained traction. People from all walks of life reached out, moved by Max's unwavering devotion and Dr. Patel's compassion. Donations poured into the animal rescue organization that had helped Max, and several families came forward to adopt other strays in need. Max's story became a catalyst for change, inspiring kindness and action in a way Dr. Patel had never anticipated. One evening, as Dr. Patel sat on his couch, Max curled up beside him. He reflected on how much their lives had changed. The dog who had once shivered alone in the cold now had a warm home, a full belly, and a family who loved him. And for Dr. Patel, Max had become more than a companion. He was a reminder of the resilience of the human and canine spirit, and the healing power of love. Yet, the most profound moment came during a small event organized by the hospital to celebrate Max's story. Patients, staff, and members of the community gathered to share how the story had impacted them. A young boy in a wheelchair approached Dr. Patel with tears in his eyes. "I lost my dog last year," he said. "Hearing about Max makes me want to get another one. I think I'm ready now." Dr. Patel knelt down beside the boy, his voice steady and kind. "Dogs have a way of finding us when we need them most," he said. "Just like Max found me, and I think you'll find the perfect one when the time is right." As the event concluded, Dr. Patel looked over at Max, who was happily wagging his tail as children surrounded him. The dog who had once waited in the shadows of grief was now a symbol of hope and love, touching lives in ways no one could have imagined. And so, the journey that began with loss and heartbreak transformed into something beautiful. For Max, for Dr. Patel, and for everyone who heard their story, it was a testament to the unbreakable bond between animals and humans, and the incredible power of love to heal even the deepest wounds. Max's journey from heartbreak to healing touched countless lives. The little puppy who once waited outside a hospital, holding on to hope, found a new purpose in his bond with Dr. Patel. Together, they showed the world the power of love, loyalty, and second chances. Max's story inspired a community to care for animals in need and reminded everyone of the incredible connections we share with them. Through patience and kindness, Max found peace, and Dr. Patel found a companion who changed his life forever. Their story proves that even in loss, love has the power to create new beginnings. If this story touched your heart, hit subscribe for more heartfelt tales like this. And check out our next video about an elephant who saved its caretaker's life.